Welcome back. Now, the past 4 years have been quite tough for the security machinery in the country and its personnel, and indeed Nigerians. These have been years when terrorism activities were more intense in the streets, offices, public places, and places of worship with callous brutality. Sadly, the security services have borne the brunt of the casualties, with fatalities in their ranks that number in their thousands. Well, some will say that is debatable. The Inspector General of Police, Solomon Arase, disclosed recently that over 400 of his officers have died just this year alone in the line of duty with armed robbery and kidnappings, etc. Public security is a function of government which ensures the protection of its citizens, organizations and institutions against threats to their well-being and to the prosperity of their communities. Nigeria's growing unemployment rate is of major concern, and there are those who are worried that this is one avenue of increased crime. Official figures from the Bureau of Statistics put it at 20%, that's about 30 million, but this does not actually include about 40 million other Nigerian youths captured in World Bank statistics in 2009. By implication, it means that about 50% of Nigerians are unemployed, and that would also fuel criminality in the country.
Yeah, because they say, when
an idle mind is the devil's
workshop. Yes.
Okay, but we're looking at all of this, and it raises a level of concern. What is the situation in Nigeria in terms of the security threats that seem to be on every corner? What kind of agencies do we have, or do we need to set up? Who is monitoring what? Who is checking what? Who is anyway? These are all questions, and we'll hope to get answers this morning. We have two former military men in the house, or retired military men in the house. Let me begin from our Abuja studio. We have Major General Wahab Garba, the former General Officer commanding Division 1. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And here in Lagos, we have Major Isaac Ebo, who is also a retired major and a security expert. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. General Garba, let me begin with you. I asked a question. How would you describe the current security situation in the country?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me this morning. Well, it's precarious, it's fluid, and in the modern context, that is expected. You've mentioned some of the factors that are responsible for that, more especially the level of unemployment. But unfortunately, everybody wants the government to provide everything, and it's not possible for the government to do virtually everything when it comes to security. Security is everybody's responsibility. The average man on the street needs to be conscious of what is expected of him or her. And without that, we will continue to have all these issues. Secondly, we need to curb the rate of impunity in the system. The level of impunity is just too high. Anybody can do anything and go scot-free. So until we stop stopping all these level of impunity or curbing the level of impunity, we'll continue to have all these problems. How many people have been arrested for kidnapping, for armed robbery, and whatever? It takes so long to prosecute such cases. When those who are perpetrating all these acts realize that nothing is going to happen, you are offending, you are giving them, you are fueling the issue all the more. So those are some of the things we need to critically look at: the judiciary, the policing, and then the security consciousness or awareness of the average citizen in Nigeria.
Yeah, you've mentioned the judiciary, the talk about policing. When we look at policing, what exactly do you think the security operatives or those in authority should be doing?
You see, we need to go back to the basics. At one point, the police security reforms was undertaken, but it was not concluded. If you don't conclude the reforms in the police sector, you have a massive issue at hand. A lot of things need to be done on that. Secondly, we need to start building trust for the police. If the average Nigerian does not trust the police, what do you want? What do you expect them to do? What do you want them to do? The trust must be there. Without the trust, it's unfortunate, nothing. The police will not be able to do anything. And you see, a lot of people are agitating for state police. It's not impossible to have state police, but it's going to be difficult in Nigeria. If the states are being paid salary, as far as, I'm sorry to say that, but that's what is happening in Nigeria. The states are collecting salary from the federal government, and yet they cannot pay their own workers, and you want them to set up their own state police. You are going to have a massive issue at hand. So a lot of things need to be done to resolve that issue.
All right, let's come back to the studios. He said we need reforms with the police and perhaps other security agencies. But what's your take on what's going on in our security space?
Thank you very much. I strongly believe that the police, to some extent, has really changed in its function, and the military too is doing so well, you know, by God's grace, with what the president is doing in the Northeast. We are having changes in so many aspects of even our security. So my take is that we should continue to encourage the police to do the right thing in terms of even reforming the police, make sure the police have policies in place that are going to be coherent, that are going to affect the masses. We should have systems where we could be able to report cases of impunity, you know, to the appropriate authorities, and ensure that those acts of impunity are carried out. You know, justice is effected on them. So I think what the general said is quite appropriate.
Well, okay. The general, he said what he said is quite appropriate. Yeah. But let's hold on with the police.
Okay.
And look at, in the last few weeks, for instance, in the week that passed, we had some explosions, bombs going off in Kanu. Yeah. I think it was Kanu.
In Yola.
Yola, I know that. This is like a recurring decimal. I mean, the explosions. Yes, maybe fast-paced, but it's happened before and it's happened again. What are we doing about counter-terrorism?
Okay.
What efforts, the efforts that are being put into ending terrorism, or fighting the Boko Haram and ending terrorism, do you think they are adequate? Do you think they are adequate? Let's go.
I don't think they are adequate for now. But see, fighting terrorism is an ongoing thing. It's not you can't just fight. It's unfortunate that when terrorism comes into a country, it has to stay for a while. It's not just easy for you to have somebody who's already used to suicide bombing, you know, to just stop overnight. No. When you are fighting conventional warfare, it's absolutely different. Like I work with the United Nations in the Central African Republic and Chad. You know, if you look at the terrain, they're quite the same with the Northeast, quite the same with Maiduguri. But what I think we could do is, in as much as our troops have been able to push the terrorists far away from the shores of our country, we can do more. We can employ security devices. There's so many. We could use more of our air assets, you know, more of our air assets to ensure that we carry out consistent survey of our territory. Like when I was in Chad with the United Nations, every morning the Chadian government carries out an air survey of the whole of its territory. You can imagine Chad has a very large landmass. It does that in the morning and does that at night. And then there was this day we had a dinner with the ambassador, one of the Chadian ministers said, can't you Nigerians talk to us so the government can borrow you some of these our reconnaissance aircrafts? And there are just very few of them, just 4. And every morning and night they patrol.
Are you implying that we don't do that in Nigeria?
We do that. I'm not saying we do that.
Consistent?
We do that. One thing we could deploy more of that. More air assets. We could deploy more surveillance devices. There are surveillance devices that the world has gone so far beyond what we ever think now. You know, there are surveillance devices we can deploy in places where you don't have physical deployment of troops there. You know, like now. Do you know, if you are aware, I don't know if you have such information, we know that there are mosquitoes, there are rats, who are they're not physical, they're not animate objects, but they are deployed as security devices to get information at strategic places in the world.